Alexander "Alex" Wright stood out among the nurses at Boston's Riverside General Hospital, not just for his immaculate blue scrubs or the rainbow pin discreetly attached to his ID badge, but for the unwavering compassion that defined his 11 years of service. The harsh New England winter raged outside as Alex moved efficiently through his shift, addressing each patient with genuine care, an approach that had earned him stellar evaluations, but also quiet whispers from those uncomfortable with his openness about being gay. The emergency room doors hissed open, bringing with them a gust of snow and a man who leaned heavily against the frame. James Parker, disheveled and pale, limped toward the reception desk, his torn jeans revealing an angry, infected gash across his calf. The receptionist glanced at his worn military ID and dog tags before turning away. "No insurance. Not in the system," her voice carried across the room, where Alex was restocking supplies. For Alex, time seemed to freeze. The military tags gleaming under the fluorescent lights transported him back to his brother Ryan's funeral. Another veteran the system had failed. Ryan had served with the Rangers in Iraq, returning home with invisible wounds that the VA waitlist never addressed before he took his own life. "That doesn't mean he doesn't need help," Alex said firmly. Approaching the desk, the charge nurse frowned. "We can't admit him. Alex, you know the protocol." But something in Alex shifted as he saw the unit insignia on James's tags, the same as Ryan's. "Then I'll treat him off the system," he replied, grabbing a medical kit and guiding James to a quiet corner. As Alex cleaned the wound, James winced but maintained the stoic demeanor of someone accustomed to pain. "Sir, I don't want to cause trouble." "Oh," he mumbled. Alex gave him a steady smile that masked his churning emotions. "You fought for this country. Let someone fight for you now." The antibiotics, bandages, an energy bar from his own lunch were small offerings against the system that had failed too many veterans. James's eyes held a familiar emptiness, the same Alex had seen in Ryan's during those final months. "Thank you," James whispered hoarsely, his calloused hand briefly squeezing Alex's arm. "You didn't see me," Alex responded softly, finishing the bandage. "But you are not walking out of here limping." That night, as snow blanketed Boston, Alex sat by his apartment window, thinking about his actions. The down payment for his first home in Dorchester was due next week, a dream shared with David, his boyfriend of 3 years. A suspension would derail everything. Still, Ryan's photo on the shelf seemed to watch him with approval. "I'd do it again," Alex whispered to the empty room. Little did he know that his small act of compassion would soon collide with the highest levels of military authority, setting in motion events that would challenge an entire healthcare system and remind a divided nation what truly matters. If you believe that doing the right thing should never cost someone their livelihood, like and subscribe to Heart Stories. Every act of compassion deserves to be remembered, especially when it comes at a price. The next morning, Boston's skyline stood stark against steel-gray clouds as Alex was summoned to Richard Hale's office. The hospital administrator's reputation had transformed over the years, from brilliant surgeon to budget enforcer. Now, at 58, his rimless glasses and perfectly pressed lab coat seemed to represent the very system that prioritized paperwork over people. Unauthorized medication, unauthorized treatment. Richard's tone was clinical as he reviewed the report before him. Alex stood tall, still in his scrubs from an overnight shift. "I helped a man who served this country," he stated simply. Richard's expression flickered briefly, an uncharacteristic hesitation from a man known for unwavering policy enforcement. A photo of his son in military uniform sat on his desk, creating a contradiction he visibly struggled with. "You're suspended pending review," Richard finally declared, sliding Alex's badge across the desk. "No hearing, no warning, just policy." Alex took his badge silently, the plastic still warm from being scanned at the start of his shift. The hallway outside felt colder with every step toward the exit. In his apartment, David sat at their kitchen table, mortgage papers spread before him. "We can figure this out," he insisted. though the worry lines around his eyes betrayed his optimism. The school district always needs substitute teachers. My principal would understand if I picked up extra classes. Alex watched his partner's hands nervously rearranging the paperwork. The foundation of their future suddenly unstable because Alex couldn't ignore a wounded veteran. By evening, someone had posted online, "Nurse suspended for helping a veteran. Welcome to 2025. The story spread like wildfire through Boston's tight-knit communities. Comments flooded the hospital's social media pages. Policy over people. This is why we lose good ones. My father served and was treated like trash when he came back." Inside Riverside General, a quiet rebellion brewed. Nurses took longer breaks. Paperwork slowed mysteriously. A resident hung a small American flag pin on her scrubs, against dress code. During an emergency staff meeting, Richard Hale stood before his increasingly hostile audience. "This isn't about veterans," he insisted, scanning the room of blank stares. "This is about procedure, liability, structure, rules that keep us safe." A young nurse raised her hand. Safe from what? Sir, compassion. The question hung in the air, unanswered but echoing through the fluorescent-lit conference room. Later that evening, Richard's favorite coffee mug mysteriously disappeared from his office. At OutVet's headquarters in downtown Boston, the LGBTQ+ veterans organization launched a social media campaign, #Stand with Alex Wright. Their director, a retired Marine sergeant, organized a peaceful demonstration outside the hospital. "This isn't just about one nurse or one veteran," she told reporters. "This is about a system that has forgotten its purpose." Richard Hale sat alone in his office that night, reviewing Alex's personnel file. 10 years of service, flawless evaluations, a letter of commendation from the hospital board for establishing the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. His phone rang. The chairman of the hospital board, voice tight with concern. "The story's everywhere, Rick," he said. "Veterans groups are organizing. A congressman's aide just called me." "He broke protocol," Richard insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. "It's black and white." "Sometimes black and white needs reviewing," the chairman replied. "Fix this before it breaks us." That night, as snow continued to fall across Boston, Richard didn't sleep. By dawn, he drafted a cold, cautious statement defending the suspension while promising a vague review of emergency care policies for veterans. It satisfied no one, least of all himself. His assistant knocked on his door at 7:30 a.m., face pale. "Sir, there's a military convoy outside, and they're asking for Alexander Wright." Life often presents moments that define us, not by our titles or policies, but by how we respond when compassion and convention collide. For Alex and Richard, this collision was just beginning, and its aftershocks would challenge not just a hospital, but an entire system built on rules that had forgotten their reason. The military convoy drew stares from patients and staff as it pulled up to Riverside General's entrance. 3 black Suburbans with government plates positioned themselves with military precision at the emergency entrance. Boston's morning commuters slowed to watch as a 4-star general emerged from the center vehicle, his dress uniform adorned with ribbons and medals that told stories of decades of service. General Thomas Avery stood tall despite his 65 years, his silver hair closely cropped, his posture unbending as he surveyed the hospital entrance. The security guard at the door froze. "Can I help you, sir?" The general didn't even glance at him. "I'm looking for Alexander Wright." Word spread through the hospital corridors like electricity. Phones appeared from pockets, capturing the moment when Richard Hale rushed down from administration, tie askew and face flushed. "General, may I ask what this is regarding?" The administrator's voice wavered between authority and uncertainty. General Avery's voice carried through the lobby, deliberately loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm here about James Parker, the veteran your nurse helped yesterday after you turned him away." The lobby fell silent, every eye fixed on the confrontation. "Parker served under my command in Afghanistan. Twice he saved my life in Kandahar." Meanwhile, Alex sat on a bench in Copley Square, snow soaking through his jeans as he stared at his phone filled with messages of support he couldn't bring himself to answer. The suspension notice felt heavy in his pocket, heavier still when combined with the mortgage pre-approval that would expire in days. His brother Ryan's voice seemed to whisper in the winter wind, "Stand your ground, little brother." Back at Riverside, General Avery continued, his voice calm but firm. "When we hit that IED outside Kandahar, 3 of our men were down. Parker ran through gunfire, no helmet, no body armor, just duty and loyalty." His eyes scanned the growing crowd of staff. "When I was bleeding out behind a burning convoy, James Parker didn't ask for a policy number. He didn't wait for forms. He just ran." Richard Hale stood motionless, the general's words stripping away his administrative armor. Revealing the doctor who had once taken an oath to do no harm, the general reached into his jacket and produced 2 envelopes. "This one," he said, holding up the first, "is already on its way to the Secretary of Veterans Affairs." He pulled out the second envelope. "And this is for Alexander Wright." A hospital volunteer approached timidly. "Sir, Alex isn't here. He left after his suspension." The general's expression didn't change. "Where is he now?" The young woman hesitated. "He mentioned something about Copley Square, said he needed to think." Without another word, General Avery departed, leaving Richard Hale standing in a lobby now buzzing with whispers. 30 minutes later, Alex looked up to find the general standing before him in the snow-covered square. To Alex's shock, Thomas Avery saluted him. "Mr. Wright," he said with formal gravity, "permission to thank you properly." "I'm not military, sir," Alex replied, standing awkwardly. "No," the general said, "but you remembered what we fight for when others forgot." He handed Alex the envelope. Inside was an invitation to speak at the National Medical Ethics Summit and a job offer from the VA Boston healthcare system as an emergency response liaison. Alex stared at the papers, speechless. "James Parker has more shrapnel in his body than some museums have on display." The general continued. "He waited 5 days before seeking help, not because he didn't need it, but because he was trained to endure, not to inconvenience." Alex looked up, confused. "Why all this for me?" The general's stern expression softened slightly. "My son is gay, Mr. Wright. 2 years ago, he was denied treatment at a rural clinic after his discharge. The infection nearly killed him." He paused, memories clearly painful. "This isn't just about you. This happens everywhere. Good people punished for doing the right thing. Someone has to draw the line." As snow continued to fall around them, General Avery explained that James Parker was now stable, the antibiotics having prevented the infection from spreading further. "He asked me to find you, said you were the first person in the system who looked him in the eye instead of at his paperwork." The truth about compassion is that it rarely arrives conveniently. It doesn't wait for perfect circumstance or proper channels. Instead, it appears in moments when someone chooses to see the person behind the policy, recognizing that human dignity transcends any system we create to manage it. Richard Hale stood in his office window, watching the military convoy depart. The general's words echoed in his mind, colliding with decades of administrative discipline. On his desk lay 2 documents, Alex Wright's suspension notice and a photo of his own son, Lieutenant Kevin Hale, currently serving overseas. The contradiction burned in his chest like heartburn no antacid could touch. His phone buzzed with messages from the hospital board, from staff, from veteran groups. Even the mayor's office had called, concerned about the developing story. Richard slumped into his chair, removed his glasses, and rubbed the bridge of his nose. The physician he'd once been before budgets and protocols consumed him, whispered from somewhere deep inside, "First, do no harm." Meanwhile, Boston's persistent snow had turned to freezing rain as Alex Wright read through the VA job offer again. David sat beside him on their apartment couch, arm wrapped protectively around Alex's shoulders. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "Your brother would be too." The photo of Ryan in his military uniform seemed to watch from the shelf, his smile forever frozen at 26, the age he was when he'd lost his battle with PTSD and the system that failed to treat it. By morning, the Stand With Alex Wright hashtag had reached national trending status. News vans positioned themselves outside Riverside General, where staff entered with subtle shows of solidarity. Rainbow pins alongside American flag emblems, a quiet merging of causes that transcended political divisions. Richard Hale arrived early, having barely slept. He'd spent the night reviewing hospital policy, VA recommendations, and his own conscience. He'd also called his son overseas, their conversations spanning oceans and perspectives. "Do what's right, Dad," Kevin had said. "Not what's easy." At 9:00 a.m. precisely, Richard Hale made his decision. His assistant watched in surprise as he removed his tie, replaced his formal lab coat with a shorter clinical one, and headed toward the emergency department, the domain he'd once ruled as a surgeon before administration had claimed him. He found Alex in Copley Square again, this time accompanied by General Avery and several veterans who had joined the impromptu gathering. "Mr. Wright," Richard called, his voice carrying across the park. "Your suspension is rescinded," the small crowd murmured, but General Avery stepped forward. "That's not enough," he stated firmly. "Lifting a punishment isn't the same as admitting it never should have happened." Richard's voice cracked slightly, an unprecedented display of emotion from the usually stoic administrator. "What would you have me do?" "Start," the general replied. "By admitting the failure wasn't his. It was a system that forgot its purpose." Richard stood silent for a long moment, snow melting on his shoulders. Finally, he nodded. "I apologize," he said, looking directly at Alex. "To you and to every veteran we've failed. I lost sight of what matters." The following week transformed Riverside General. Alex returned not just as a nurse, but as the newly created Veterans Care Liaison, a position designed to bridge the gap between hospital protocol and veterans' needs. Richard Hale, in an unexpected move, stepped down from administration to lead a new department focused on compassionate care policy. A small plaque was installed near the emergency entrance. "For those who act with compassion before protocol." The hospital board unanimously approved new guidelines ensuring that veterans would receive immediate care regardless of insurance status, with billing details to be addressed afterward. James Parker, now recovered from his infection, appeared at the hospital's press conference. The once frail man stood straight, his military bearing evident as he addressed the cameras. "What happened here isn't just about one nurse or one veteran," he said. "It's about remembering that behind every policy is a person. The true measure of institutional change isn't found in press releases or policy documents. It lives in the small daily actions that acknowledge human dignity above procedural convenience. For every system built on rules, there must be room for the compassion that reminds us why those rules exist in the first place. Not to protect institutions from people, but to protect people through institutions." 2 years after the events at Riverside General, Alex Wright stood before the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs in Washington, D.C. The hearing room buzzed with anticipation as he adjusted the microphone. His testimony representing thousands of healthcare workers and veterans whose stories had emerged in the wake of what was now called the Boston Incident. "The Alex Wright Act isn't just about medical access for veterans," he explained to the assembled senators. "It's about transforming how systems treat the people they're designed to serve." Behind him sat General Avery, now a vocal advocate for healthcare reform, and James Parker, whose recovered leg had carried him through multiple marathons raising awareness for veteran care. The legislation had grown from a local Boston initiative to a comprehensive national bill ensuring emergency care for veterans regardless of insurance status, while also protecting healthcare workers who made compassionate choices within rigid systems. What had begun as one nurse's decision in a snowy emergency room had catalyzed change across the country. Back in Boston, Riverside General had become a model for healthcare institutions nationwide. The Veterans Care Liaison program Alex had pioneered now operated in 63 hospitals across New England. Richard Hale, freed from administrative constraints, had published a widely cited paper on compassionate protocol that was changing medical school curricula from coast to coast. Alex and David finally purchased their Dorchester home, the living room wall featuring both Ryan's military photo and the framed letter General Avery had delivered that fateful day. Their house had become an unofficial gathering place for LGBTQ+ healthcare workers and veterans, building bridges between communities often kept separate. One snowy evening, remarkably similar to the night that had changed everything, a young resident physician knocked on Alex's office door at Riverside. "I've got a Marine in room 7, she explained nervously. "No insurance, needs emergency surgery, VA is backlogged. Protocol says transfer, but she's not stable." Alex smiled gently. "What does your instinct say?" The resident hesitated. "To treat her now." "Then you already know what to do," Alex replied. As he turned to walk away, the young doctor called after him. "What if I get in trouble?" Alex paused, thinking of the journey that had brought him here, from suspension to Senate testimony, from isolation to community. With quiet certainty that now carried across an entire healthcare system, he answered, "Then we'll change the rules again." Sometimes the most profound changes begin with the smallest acts of courage. A nurse treating a veteran despite the rules, a general standing up for what's right, an administrator remembering why he became a doctor in the first place. These moments remind us that systems are only as compassionate as the people willing to challenge them when they fail. Have you ever stood alone for what was right, even when systems or rules stood against you? Share your story in the comments below, because at Heart Stories, we believe that courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about doing what's right even when there's a price to pay. Subscribe for more stories that remind us what true compassion looks like in action.